Hello and welcome to Chinwag. I'm Kim from Pooches Galore.
And I'm Carla at Completely Canine.
And today we're talking about stubbornness in dogs or lack of stubbornness in dogs.
Ooh, touchy
Ooh.
subject.
Yeah, I definitely, when I think of this subject, I do think of like terriers,
Okay.
kind
Why
of that,
specifically terriers?
the tenacity of and motivation for,
Yeah.
which we'll get
Motivation,
into.
sure. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
all motivation. I think
Yeah, it
that's
is.
what it is. It's labeling behaviors as stubborn. And
Mm.
is it that they're stubborn or is it a lack of motivation or
Or
something
a lack
else?
of clear communication.
Yeah, or pain.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on. There's a lot to unpick
Mm.
around the word stubborn because I have a lot of
Yeah.
clients who use it in relation to their dog, like, oh, they're stubborn, they won't do
Hmm.
that. And
Yeah.
it's unpacking that and
Hmm.
understanding, is it? No. Or is it? So if it isn't that, then what could it be instead?
Yeah. Yup.
Let's get into it.
Let's do it. Yeah. I think
Ha-
I hear that word every single day
yeah,
from somebody.
yeah. I think
Like, I think I'm stubborn.
oh, you are
As
stubborn.
a 100%. I'm so stubborn. So in comparison, nobody is. But um, yeah, I have the capacity to manipulate situations to get an outcome that I want to have and to not feel like I'm wrong. So I will argue to the death my point about something and stick with it so that I don't look like I'm wrong.
we have
Terrible.
we have had a lot of like WhatsApp chats with Google links inserted
Proof you're wrong.
because we're both quite stubborn. There was a whole one about the sunset time in Yorkshire compared to Leicestershire
Oh, yeah.
because I was
Oh
more
my
north, so it
God.
had to be different. So yeah,
Imagine
I
if our WhatsApp chat had a link to our Google history together.
no, no, thank you. No one
I
needs
wouldn't
to see
share
that.
it.
No. But yeah, we're both quite stubborn as individuals,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hear it a lot with dogs.
Mm.
That they're stubborn. They won't do something because they've somehow got this master manipulation plan of if I don't sit when they tell me to, then
Mm.
I can take over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Or yeah, your dog's dominant because they don't want to
Yeah,
do what you're asking them to
yeah,
do. I think if I'm being super honest, I think the words stubborn and dominant are thrown around when someone's at an end of not knowing what to do with the dog.
yeah. And they've
it
tried a
it
lot
not
of
everything.
things.
Yeah, everything I have in my capacity and my knowledge base and my skill set isn't working, therefore nothing can be done, and the
Yeah,
dog has decided that it's their way or the highway, and
yeah,
that must be the only other option.
yes.
Yeah.
I think what we have to think about in terms of a human being stubborn is that it is quite a high processing level of function for our brain. So
Mhm.
it's deciding that we're not going to do something because we want a different
Outcome.
outcome
Yeah.
or something like that. And it takes
Mhm.
quite a lot of brain power and a lot of forethought as to if I don't do this now, that will impact me in this way in the future. And I want that
Mhm.
impact in the future. And so therefore I will sit this out or I will argue, whatever. Dogs just don't really have that kind of processing in their brains. We don't think they have that kind of
Mm.
processing in their brains. Maybe they
Yeah.
do. Maybe they are stubborn. Maybe this is all completely wrong. But as far as we know, they're quite in the moment animals. Whereas we will think, oh, if I'm
Mm.
stubborn now in 6 weeks' time, it'll work in my benefit.
Yeah, for sure. Like they have strong memory and
Yeah.
association, and they work on patterns. Dogs
Yes.
work on patterns of what has worked in the past to lead me to this point.
Yeah.
I'll repeat that because that
It
that was
worked.
great. And all those things are generally worked around their primal needs.
Yes.
So that's the basic needs to get food, access to things, to remove access to things. They will work instinctually and primally more over than intellectually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're like, I want that bit of chicken. I'll get that bit of chicken.
Yeah, I'll find a way to go get it. And then if you
Yeah.
do leave it, they're like, yeah, but I can smell it. And
Where's
it's
the
like
chicken?
really like, I can lick it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
they're like a 2-year old.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they
Yes.
they
Very
have
much.
no they have no sense of moral of right or wrong.
No. One thing
Like,
they do lack, oh, go on, so go carry on.
no, go ahead, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say one thing that they do lack, which is very toddler like, is a sense of control over their environment. And so sometimes they will act out to try and gain that sense of control. And that is why, well, a lot of toddlers will do that as well, because over food, because it's the first thing they can have any control over. And you get a lot of toddlers who won't eat. And it's because they don't have any control. And then they learn that they have control, and then they exploit it and cause people like me to cry because they won't eat. Dogs are the same, because they don't have very much control over what they do when they go for a walk, what they have access to, what they don't have access to, all of those things. They will try to start to control some resources or how they get access to them as well. And that can look quite stubborn.
Yeah, because that makes them feel safe.
Yes.
Yeah, or as an attempt to make them feel safe. Yeah, it's a survival instinct for them. Yeah.
So we're using that motivation just in the wrong way, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I always think of terriers, because terriers aren't the most, generally, I'm very general, they're not always the most food motivated.
Yeah.
So you can have a terrier who's really tenacious to get to something, and then they have an owner who's showing them a bit of chicken, asking them to sit, and they're just like, I'm just not that fussed by the food. So they look stubborn because the Labrador next to them has done 26.
Like,
How can I sit harder for you? And so they look stubborn, like they're refusing to do something, but it's that the motivation just isn't there.
Yeah, and I'd say that's like, in my brain, two principal reasons. When you have a terrier, the first thing is that they are bred to go to the ends of the earth to finish their job effectively. So actually it's not, maybe it could be labelled as a bit of stubbornness, I don't know, but it's more persistence,
tenacity, isn't it? It's like, I will just keep going to get to my end goal, whatever that end goal is. And
we've bred them to be like that. And the other side of it is they've been bred to work independently, not as a team. Whereas your Labradors are, gun dogs are bred to work as part of a team with you. Terriers are ratters, a lot of them, left on their own devices, on farms, to go and kill animals that come in and be there, and to do it to the point they catch them. And they get the endorphin hit if they catch them. So actually for them, once they've caught an animal, that's it.
They're not supposed to eat the rats.
No.
So
stop it being alive.
No, exactly. So if you're using the wrong motivator for your dog, and that could be any dog. I've just been to see a Lhasa Apso. One thing that our first job is to work out its motivation, because it doesn't have anything that's like glaringly obvious. It's definitely not.
Do you want to sit on my lap? Yes, you go sit.
No, won't. No. Doesn't. No, not even a lap dog. I was like,
my lord.
But
I don't have to help you. Sorry.
We'll get there. We're going to get there. It's going to be just fine. But it's working out what the motivator for your individual dog is. Not for the last Border Terrier had, not for the last Lhasa Apso, not for the last Labrador or the 20 Labradors you've had previously. What is the motivator for your dog you are looking at right now? And that motivator might be different in different environments.
Yeah, sure.
So food
different times of the day.
Times of the day, before their dinner, after their dinner, inside, outside, garden, park, they're all completely different. We talked about this a lot when we did the generalization, but when you're talking about motivators, some dogs will eat anything at home, but in the park it's almost a little bit aversive. So
or as we've said before as well, like another reinforcer overrides it. So I went to see a lady yesterday who, her dog is super toy obsessed, to the point where if the toy was on her on a walk, this Springer would be in her face, like, bouncing literally in her face and bouncing off her, and she's only a little lady. So my first job was, okay, how high value is the treat that I could work with here compared to, and actually it was quite high, but in the garden to start with, and if I dropped it on the floor. So it depends on how you're using it as well. So the dog wouldn't have given the toy up if I held my hand out with the treat in it, but the dog wasn't being stubborn. The dog didn't have the right motivator. If I threw the treat on the floor, it was like, I've got the toy, I don't care about the toy.
Or you could use, maybe not with that dog, but with other dogs, you could use another ball. So you use the same value item to get the drop, and then you throw the second ball and they chase that. And that's more motivating. And that's how I taught Millie, my spaniel, to drop, was got one ball, I've got one ball. If you drop that ball, you can have my ball. Brilliant. And it was just a game. And then you can then generalize that to like dropping anything. So it is working out, whereas Millie wouldn't, not, she was very food motivated. She would not drop a ball for a treat. That ball was her number one thing.
Yeah. Charlie was similar in some senses. He was a retriever. He liked to have stuff in his mouth. So quite often I'd get a message from daycare when he was there that he'd found that one of the gardening gloves, and he would just take it off and he would hold it in his mouth and he'd be like, nope, you're not having it. But he'd never do anything. But he would just be like, this is mine, I'm going to keep it. It feels really nice. And I might pick it a little bit if it feels good. And that's motivating for me. I enjoy holding, possessing, and ripping. And could have got a treat out for him and he might have given it up. But actually, I think he'd find the activity more reinforcing than the treat itself. So
I think with that, maybe not gardening gloves because that's quite niche.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking more like sticks on walks.
Yeah.
So I don't like dogs having sticks, not at all. They're very dangerous. They cause me a lot of anxiety. But a lot of dogs really like to carry a stick. And in the early days of owning these puppies, they've picked up the sticks. Owners have used one solitary treat for the dog to give up the stick. And the dog learns that they get the treat, but they lose the stick.
Yeah. And
so then they stop giving the stick up for the one bit of kibble that's on offer. And that then, like, oh, they're really stubborn when they have a stick. And it's actually, no, you've kind of poisoned the whole thing because you gave them the treat, but you took the stick. And as much as we don't want them to have the stick, the treat ended up not being motivating enough. And that learning history of, but I lose the stick, and that kind of feeling of loss, I'm sure they have it in some way. Like that negative feeling outweighs the bit of dry kibble that they were offered to give it up.
Yeah.
So we have to think about past learning history as well, and what has actually happened. Has something kind of been poisoned along the way because stick was quite valuable?
Yeah, like get into your dog's head as much as you can and think, like, what have they gotten from this? What's the trade-off been for them? Is it worth it for them? If you were in the same scenario, would you feel the same about it? You know, if I found a chocolate cake, a vegan chocolate cake, and it was all packaged up, and someone had just left it on the side, it was in date, I'm like, oh my god, someone's like, I'm gonna give you some carrot. Can you give me that cake? I'm like, you can sod off, mate.
You don't want... Like, I'll eat the carrot and then I'm going to eat the cake.
Oh, well, I don't know. I like carrots, but, not in that context.
No, I think that we have to think, and that from a really young age, we can teach dogs to be quite stubborn or not motivated to give things up, because puppies put everything in their mouths. Like, if in doubt, pick it up, chew it, see if it's edible. And we spend a lot of time as new puppy owners trying to get stuff out of their mouths, and we can kind of inadvertently teach our dogs to keep things in their mouths, because once it's in, if they clamp down on it, that's it, it's in there. So prior learning history as well, in loads of different situations, can make dogs look quite stubborn. I'm going to mention a television show that I hate. Not recommending it. I don't remember what it's called. The Dogs Behaving Badly. There was an episode on that a few years ago now, with a golden retriever who was being called stubborn. I do not watch this program, and I do not recommend anybody else watches it either. But this dog was stubborn, and it would not get off the sofa when it was told to. It was quite a famous episode because of the drama around it in the social media dog training sphere. And I watched this episode, and they were like, oh, she's the diva was the other word that they threw around for her. She'll only get off the sofa onto the laminate floor. See where this is going, can't you? If we put a carpet down. I thought, bloody clever dog. Of course it doesn't like getting down onto the laminate. It's slippy and it's potentially in pain, when either every time, or again, past learning history has learned that I jumped off once and I slipped and I hurt my shoulder, hip, elbow, whatever, and I don't want to do it again. But if I know if there is a carpet there, that it's safe and I won't hurt myself. That's a clever dog. That's not stubborn. That's a dog that's stopping itself being in pain for whatever reason. So I think as well, if your dog suddenly becomes I'm going to keep using the word, but stubborn about something, refuses to do something that they've previously done, that's always something to bear in mind, that there might be a pain or discomfort included in why the dog doesn't want to do something.
Isn't it really funny that someone will pay somebody like £300 to come and fix that as a behaviour problem when they could just leave the carpet on the floor?
Well, yeah, I have to admit, I don't think he fixed it, but I'm not sure.
That blows my mind. But yeah,
but
no,
yeah,
I was gonna
well, it reminded me
about exactly the same thing. Yeah, I had it in puppy classes. I mean, we get it all the time, don't we? But,
yes.
With a puppy who was a golden lab, and we were outdoors and we were doing mat training, and he was doing lie downs, and then over the course of a few weeks, once he'd laid down, he didn't want to get up. He wasn't springing up again. And at the time, this was years and years ago, this one, and it always like hits me, because I feel like if I knew what I knew now, that dog would have gone to a vet like way quicker. And that self-critic in me is just like, I see the signs of everything now when you look back. And anyway, he eventually he did end up going to the vets, and he's had multiple dysplasia issues, operations and everything. And it was just that it hurt. It hurt to get up and down all the time, bless him. He's not stubborn, he's in pain.
No, and we're the same, aren't we? If we don't feel 100%, I mean, I have it with Alice, she's nearly 11. Can you just go and get me this, Mum? Can you just go and get me that? When I'm not feeling 100%, I'm like, no, I can't. I haven't got the energy. My head hurts, whatever it might be. Like we're exactly the same. When we're not feeling 100%, stuff we might do just normally, we're like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. So, and
like, it's okay to say no. Like, we're allowed to say no. We're allowed to opt out. It is okay for a dog to say no. If your dog doesn't want to spin in a circle when you're doing your training class, it is okay to not spin in a circle. No world's gonna, explode.
No, but what we have to think about in that moment, we have to have empathy for that dog, and try and unpick the why. Why, when they did it last week, are they not doing it this week? Or why, when they can spin clockwise, will they not spin anti-clockwise? Or like looking, why can they do a sit but not a spin? Like if they're still able to do some things, what is it about the thing that we're asking them to do that they can't do?
Yeah.
They're not trying to take over the world. They're just trying to keep themselves safe.
Yeah. And it's like with dogs I'm super hot on it in agility, but if dogs come down the A-frame, which we don't have at a high height anyway, if they come down the A-frame and they really cannot do their targets at the end of the A-frame and they come off and pull their back legs off, I'm like, right, physio check.
Yeah.
Because actually that dog's probably finding it really hurts to keep their weight up on their back end.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not stubbornness. Your dog it's not a learning problem, because I know that I've taught it right. So therefore, process of elimination, your dog needs to go and get checked.
Yeah. And I think with things like that as well, getting a video of the dog just so that you can take it. But there are so many instances where they do look like, I get why people use the word stubborn, because if it was us doing it, we would look stubborn. But it's they're not trying to take over the world. They're not trying to dominate us or have total control. But in that moment, they're trying to control it by refusing to do something because of something else.
Yeah. And it's quite commonly as well, dogs that don't want to go for a walk. It's like, I don't think that can even possibly be stubborn, because there are so many reasons why your dog might not want to go for a walk. Something scares them outside, there's a history there, or there's the cat next door has bopped them on the head when they've gone by before, or they're scared of cars, traffic,
or they're in pain.
Or they're in pain.
It will always come back to there's a plethora of reasons, and one of them is always pain. It's and they might walk to a point and then not want to go any further, or there's so many intricacies. But I think what we always need to take a step back from it, and that is where it is really useful to have a behaviourist in or a trainer in, because we do look quite objectively at like, what is the function. So with WTF, what is the function of them refusing? What they're getting out of it? Is it that they're not getting hurt? I think sometimes as well we can reinforce the not eating of a treat. Oh, you don't want that? You don't want that dry mealy bit of kibble? Here, have a bit of chicken. Cool. I'll always refuse the kibble, because sometimes you're going to come out with something better. We can teach dogs to not eat one thing, because when that's offered, something better might come along. And that's going to look stubborn as well. See, they'll do it for the chicken, but they won't do it for the kibble.
Yeah.
So we have to
it's
think
like
about
measuring up sort of what was it? Like the effort involved in what they're doing for the value of the thing. And I'm like, if maybe not so much in this job, because I feel like I probably work for free more than I should do, but like I think in other jobs or projects that I've been on, if I've been offered, you measure, you're like, oh, this is going to earn me this much and it's this much effort, is it worth it for me? I can say yes or no to it. Like, why can't a dog do the same thing?
And it can be with anything. Like, I could get offered a beer, I'll drink that. But if that is like someone else was like, oh, I'm getting a bottle of wine, do you want a glass of wine? Yes. Yes, I do. One is more valuable to me than the other. Whatever whether it's crisps like cheese and onion, salt, vinegar, whatever, you're going to have one thing and it could be social contact. Like, I've done stuff, there's a lot of effort just to get to hang out with my mates while I do it. So the rewards can be so many different things, but one thing is always going to trump something else. So I think hopefully, if you think your dog's being stubborn, just stepping back, thinking about it, and going, actually, is it something I did? Something in the environment?
Like you said, take your emotion away from it, take your goals away from it, and just be like, okay, what are all the silliest, most far out there things that could be happening here? And then the process of elimination. And
always think pain.
I
think that should be like the end of every podcast episode. It could
always
also
think
be pain.
could
also be pain.
I think we should.
Our little sign off.
Fab.
Well, I'll see you next week.
Okay. See you later.
Bye.